So today is Pearl Harbor Day. I'm at the History Museum where they have a movie with also some Pearl Harbor veterans. The movie's about the USS Ward, which was the first ship to fire the first shot of World War II, for the Americans, that is.
At 6:53 a.m., the USS Ward immediately sent a message to Naval Headquarters at Pearl Harbor. We have attacked, fired upon, and dropped depth charges upon submarine operating in defensive sea area. Most people think the attack on Pearl Harbor came from the air, but there's another story, one that appears only as a footnote in history books.
War, the largest armed conflict in history.
We knew about the war. We knew what was going on. We knew we were probably going to be in it.
Well, I was surprised. Well, let's face it, I was also a teenager, and world affairs didn't interest me very much, like most teenagers. Sports, and things. Up until December 7th, Hawaii was a beautiful place to be.
On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the conflict in Europe suddenly touched America when Germany's ally Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor.
It was just total confusion. Everybody was confused. The Army thought the Navy was doing fancy maneuvers. The Navy thought the Army was doing it until the fire started. The bombs started blowing up.
That's when I was older.
Yeah. How did you get in?
Well, I was just 16 years old in July of 1940. And 16-year-olds back in those Depression days, we were pretty naive people. And I always had a thing for the Navy, and I'd like to get a Navy white hat just to wear around the neighborhood, to show off to the other guys. Well, my dad worked for Northern States Power Company, and he told me about there was a Lieutenant J.G. that belonged to the Naval Reserve in St. Paul. And I said, would you mind asking him to get me one of those white hats? And he did. He asked him, but we didn't get the white hat. He said, well, no, you can't, I can't give you that. But he said, if you join the Naval Reserve, we'll give you the whole uniform. But I was only 16. What happens there? Well, my dad signed a paper saying I was 17. And I forgave him for telling that little fib. And everything worked out fine, and I got all those uniforms and everything. And in August of 1940, we went up on the Great Lakes on a tour. That's what the reserves do. That's about the only sea duty they get. And we were on Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior. And we got back from that little tour after 2 weeks. And President Roosevelt sent us a message. He said, well, now you're going to go on a 1-year active duty because there's been a national emergency declared. And so they said, we won't send you home, we won't send you off because it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's is coming. We're going to wait until after those things occur, and then you'll all leave. And there were 84 of us, enlisted men and 2 officers. And so now the only training most of us had was just that little 2-week trip on the Great Lakes. So they decided that we better learn to do some things. And they had some rifles there, and the bolt-action rifles. And then they had bayonets to put on them. In those days they had what they called a sword bayonet. It was very long, reached all the way down to your ankle, and you're supposed to put that on the end of the rifle. See how? And of course, they showed the switch end to put it on, so it worked out quite well. But just outside the harbor mouth, so we're seeing all this anti-aircraft fire starting to go off, and then the smoke started coming out of there. Well, it was a tremendous cloud of smoke that went from the northeast to the southwest direction. It was just black as could be. And then other things started to happen. We were getting all these shells that were being fired from the ships in there were bursting up in the air, and then they're dropping all this flak, and it was falling down around us, so we were getting, almost getting hit by what we call friendly fire. I don't know what friendly fire is, but they weren't too friendly. But anyway, then the planes were there. We start seeing the planes coming out of there, and they were flying right over us, and we didn't have the guns we had on board. The 4-inch 50s were not anti-aircraft guns; they were just strictly surface guns. But we had two 20 millimeter, not 20 millimeter, two machine guns on there, and they jammed up on us, and we didn't get a chance to knock any planes down with that. And we had one 3-inch gun that was used during World War I to shoot up star shells, and then they used that to light up the enemy so they could see it and fire at them at night. Well, the firing pins, we broke 2 firing pins off of that thing. It didn't fire. Finally, they got a third one off, and the gun went off, and we almost shot down one of our B-17s that was coming in to land there, but it missed, thankfully. And of course, at the same time the bombing was happening, these B-17s were coming in, of ours was coming in from Florida. What's the other side? California, the other side of it. Boy, I need a map is what I need now. And anyway, that's what happened. We got our radio man, happened to get a hold of them by accident on one of the planes. And they said, "What's going on down there?" And he told them, "Well, don't land at Hickam Field. Whatever you do, you'll get shot up." Well, one of them landed there anyway, and he did get shot up. And all the rest of the planes, they went off, flew and landed at other places on the other islands. Some of them golf courses and wherever they could get in, but they all landed safely. So that worked out pretty well. But to see the problem, why they didn't want to when we sent our message in, they told us, "Oh, you got to make sure about that." And so, why is that? Well, on Sunday, see, the Japanese probably had this all figured out. On Sunday is when all the ships and everybody are sending messages, practicing being radiomen. They just send messages out, didn't mean anything. And they somebody on shore thought that was probably what was happening with us too. That's so why we were pretty disturbed that they didn't believe it. Well, anyway, and so in 2 hours' time, see, in the first attack, we almost shot down about 6 of their planes because our ammunition was all locked away. When our ships it's an international law, I guess, when your ships are in port, you can't have any guns loaded, and you can't have any storage that isn't locked, or ammunition and things that isn't locked away. Well, on Sunday is a day when a lot of people carrying the keys for those might be on liberty or might be sleeping away down below or whatever. And it took a long time to get the ammunition up to the guns. And that was a bad thing. So we couldn't even shoot the planes down like we would like to have. And then later on, there was a 15-minute break between the first group of planes and the second group. And then we had guns, the battleships and other ships in the port had their guns working, and they shot a total of 28 planes down, and so it was more effective. And we had a couple planes get up in the air too that shot down some planes of theirs. But it was a one-sided victory for the Japanese that day. There wasn't much we could do about it. So, are there any questions? Maybe we could just ask some questions. Anybody want to ask a question? You can ask one of my grandsons here. Oh, go ahead. And I hope you all pray for us. We need it. Thank you.
Well, it's a privilege of 4 of us.